Hi, welcome to White Women Wake Up. I'm Jonelle.
And I'm Karen. We're a mother-daughter duo having real, unfiltered conversations about privilege, bias, and growth. One of us brings a topic the other isn't prepped for, so you'll hear genuine, off-the-cuff reactions, just like real life. Honest dialogue, even when messy, is key to unlearning old patterns and seeing new perspectives. If you want to dig deeper, visit our website at whitewomenwakeup.com. Okay, let's dive in. It was your topic.
Not this week. Last week was my topic. Last week we talked about, different idioms that we use in common phrases, and I gave in commonplace.
Yeah.
I gave the homework last week. I hope you all did it. I know Karen did it. She's excited to
I am. Two
stuff.
Things.
But really kind of do some soul searching, internal searching, Google searching to figure out what are common phrases you use that actually have some problematic background. So Karen, did you come up with any?
Yes, I did. These are two I use all the time. And I can't remember who called me out, but they did. I always say, I'm so gypped. I got gypped.
Okay.
And that is a phrase that was rooted, it's derogatory, because it was rooted in like the gypsy culture and how the gypsy culture was always kind of haggling and bargaining and kind of nothing was even Steven kind of thing. And so that one was one.
Interesting. Yeah. I say that too, probably because of you, but I've definitely used that phrase before. Yeah. Okay, good to know.
Okay. And then the other one I say, hey, we don't want it from the peanut gallery.
Oh, you do use that.
I know. And guess what? That is rooted. So it turns out during the vaudeville era, Black persons had to sit in the upper rows in the balcony, and part of like you would heckle and throw peanuts at the performers as whether you liked them or didn't like them. And so the phrase, obviously the white people down on the main stage would say, hey, not from the peanut gallery. I know.
Wow.
I know. That one is, I don't know if I'm going to say that anymore. I'm not going to say it anymore.
I was going to say, I don't think you should say that
it feels uncomfortable, doesn't it? Once you know it's history.
Well, this is just it. I know it might be hard, but like it goes back to like, once you wake up, it's hard to go back.
Yeah. Okay, I have a topic.
Your topic.
So typically, we do a lot of fact checking, and I didn't do any fact checking on this topic.
Okay.
I just want really unfiltered conversation, because when I heard this, like you may go, well, duh, Mom. Okay. I already know all about this, and then you could do the explaining.
Or then I'm going to have to do all the fact checking for the blog, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So. But I guess it's so obvious, but I hadn't thought about it before.
Okay.
And it came up twice this week, and two things.
Wow.
And one is a podcast I was listening to, and one is a book I'm reading. And this idea that our female white supremacy is based on our relationship with sexism and male sexism.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, explain to me how you think that.
Oh my goodness.
It never even occurred to me.
I mean, there's so many ways that you can take
So every young person in America is going to know about this, and every person my age might not, or maybe they do, and I just didn't know.
So there's so many layers that I can go, and I kind of will like highlight the layers where we can talk about. So the first layer is around white women, even when things are not within their interests, still side with white men for security and power. It's just something that we're raised to do.
Well, we're socialized to do this.
We're socialized to do it. And so oftentimes we do things out of our interest in order to stay with that power. You also see the same thing with a lot of like immigrant men who do not want to be associated with their immigrant status or their previous country. So they also associate themselves to white men to kind of lean in some power there.
But I thought what was so interesting from a white women's perspective, I hadn't realized, the way I kind of heard it was, we learn how to banter with men. we're around white men all the time. And so we learn how to banter, we learn how to flirt, we learn how to kind of get our way. And that socialization is also making us racist towards other persons of color
Yeah.
because we put that on the forefront. And it's also, on the flip side, it's also giving us a delusion or an illusion that we relate to people of color because we also see that we're often treated less than
Yeah.
by white males.
Yeah.
So we actually think that we are in alignment with persons of color or others on the margin because we understand that we're not considered primary sources in most white men's lives. And yet I don't know, it's very confusing to me, but it's so fascinating.
So you brought up also the term sexism and how
Yeah.
a lot of our like white women's standards are rooted in sexism as well.
Our mechanisms to survive sexism.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of studies have actually found that, and there's a good book, I want to say it's called like Why Men Hate Women, something along that sense. But a lot of modern studies have found that men are actually grown up to hate women. And it sounds like such a
it sounds terrible.
It sounds like such a awful, like completely out there concept because you're like, no, my husband, my boyfriend, my brother loves me. Yes, individuals still love their individual family members, but as a core, society brings them up to actually hate women. And so, and this can be seen in the things that are considered feminist or things that are considered feminine are not valued by men. So like this is also why like gay men being effeminate is seen as a negative kind of thing, is because anything associated with feminine or feminine, they are subconsciously driven to be told that's bad and stuff. And so subconsciously that slowly again breeds what now modern like terms are calling it red pilling men. And so it's basically like starting small.
What's a red pilling man?
So red pilling is a term that comes around the Matrix. And to be honest, I have not seen the Matrix. Do I fully know the context? No. But basically he was supposed to be given a red pill and a blue pill. And I think he took the red pill and it changed the orient of life or his path. Or again, anyone who knows anything about the Matrix is going to be like, she obviously has not seen the movie. This is what I'm gathering from context. And so there's this thing called red pilling, and it's been used in a term for like radicalizing people towards any kind of political thing. But basically like you gave them the red pill and it changed the trajectory of their life. And red pill usually happens in small, little, nuanced ways. Okay. So like as people, it's the same thing you can think about like terrorists are red pilled because they're slowly fed. They don't become extremists immediately. You're slowly fed easily digestible information. And until
So how is this used in context to men?
Yes. So in context with men is society, again, continually talks about the negatives effect of being feminine. So it's not positive to be feminine. And then because of that, it's not positive to be a feminist. It's not. And so you're slowly like, and so this is what I'm saying, why men hate women. It is an extreme term, but actually slowly through societal messages they've been chipped away at to hear that women are less than, women are here to serve, women are here. And again, those are even, I think, stronger messages than anyone would even hear on a regular basis. Again, I wish you had done I had done research more for you around this.
I wanna actually speak into what you're saying because this is kind of the tie-in to that. So here you're saying to be feminine, what I hear you saying is in a white majority male culture, feminine attributes are often considered less than. Okay, now this is where the sexism gets in. So we as white women, we do what we do, and I can't pinpoint our maneuvers exactly, and many of you experts could. in order to try to persuade white men that we're not that way. Okay. And so we spend our energies in that space trying to connect with white men so that we can move up the corporate ladder, so that we can get jobs within the corporate system. We might play into the little feminist game, or we might be a little tough, but then we're soft. This clump, then we as white women are so focused on this and are so focused that we as ourselves have had to do this maneuvering consciously or unconsciously, that we then, and I'm using my hands for any of you who are on YouTube because I feel like I need to show it, but because we've been in that space, we then think, whether it's conscious or subconscious, I think more of it is, I don't know, think that we are in alignment with our sisters that are persons of colors that are sisters. So we think because we're doing all this maneuvering to white men, but what we don't realize is we already have access to white men. So our access to white men ends up in this weird kind of way, like we think we're aligned with, because we're doing these kind of things with people that already don't like us, right? Or that are trying to push us away. Do you see?
I see what you're saying. I almost completely disagree.
Okay, so disagree in what you think I'm saying, so I can kind of reconnect it.
I see what you're saying in the sense that basically white women are playing the game. We're playing the game.
And we're playing the game in a way that we already have access to white men. Because white men are our fathers, our friends' husbands, our sons. We have access. So that access then does get us in the boardroom. I mean, if you like, even the statement, behind every strong man is a strong woman, it gives us access to these places of power.
Completely agree.
Got it.
That statement I agree with. Yeah. And I also agree with your statement that I think some women are conscious of their privilege to be direct to white men. I think some other women aren't conscious that they have that privilege. Yeah. But I do agree with you. And when you say women,
you're talking white women in this context.
Women, yes. Yeah. I think a lot of white women don't fully understand when they're looking at feminism. I don't think they fully understand their privilege to their access to white men. Yeah. Some definitely do, but some don't. Yeah. So I agree with you.
And we're busy on our feminist issues trying to get white men to just even see us differently.
Yeah. So
that's where we're busy.
Okay. So that makes more sense because I agree with you on that standpoint. But when you were saying white women are doing this over here and we think we're in solidarity with the other women of color. Yeah. I disagree with that. I don't think most white women who are playing the game are playing the game for themselves. They are not playing the game.
Okay, you're saying exactly what I'm trying to say. Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you for hearing me. Okay. I'm probably not saying it correctly. No. And so thank you for hearing me. Yes, I don't think, this is why hood feminism was so shocking to me. It was shocking. Even bell hooks was shocking to me because I didn't realize how white women hijacked feminism.
And I think we've talked about this before.
But I didn't see it through the language of sexism. Oh. And that's what I think is so unique about this. And for me, I guess what I understand about this subject is I totally get, in fact, you even did it a couple episodes earlier where it was with Ray, where you said maybe women could understand the structure of colorblindness through our structure of sexism. Yeah. And I just heard that term. So when you said it, it reminded me of that. So unpacking this a little bit more, it's like I think as white women, we have been in the game. Yeah. And all of us, I mean, feminism is so embedded in our culture now that, like you even said, I'll give you a feminist thing. In my day, no man changed diapers. Now, every guy changed diapers.
And see, I think that's a misnomer. I think we are in a liberal bubble. I think we are a liberal bubble where women are pushing men to be more emotionally aware and to be help with the household. And so I think, because I've had some male friends say the same things before, we are in a bubble.
Yeah.
I have plenty of other friends in the South who that is nowhere on their landscape of partnership to have men help with that.
Yeah.
And I think this is actually some of the biggest issues with progressive narratives is we think this narrative holds true for everyone. So I have so many men in our life who are like, yeah, feminism doesn't need to happen because we're equal now. We're playing equal parts.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. We're in progressive circles, we're uplifting to equal parts. But even then, with, again, these same conversations, we still had a friend who is like very, very involved in his child's life and their development and everything. And yet you say things like, okay, well, if you have another kid, are you going to stay home?
Yeah.
And it is not even in his realm.
Okay, this is
thinking about that. And so this is where I still think, though, that problem lies, is like you're saying feminist stuff is like in your day. But again, the fact that it's still not front of mind for the man, but it is front of mind for the woman of who will care for a second child if that happens shows, again, the disconnect. There's action there, but
okay, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if I talk to a lot of white women, they are definitely trying to advocate for themselves within a workspace.
For sure.
And they're trying to advocate for themselves even within a relationship space.
Yeah.
And the way in which we might be advocating still are actions that are systemic to sexism. So whether we're a little flirty, whether we're a little submissive, whether we're one way or another. And so this language of sexism, or our reactions to sexism, are also keeping us from truly understanding how persons who have been othered, how there's a disconnect. Like, we think that we're in alignment with myself, because I have tried to advocate for myself, feel like I'm in alignment with my sisters of color and so forth, when in fact, I'm still just fighting that white bubble, and I'm not even going to a holistic bubble.
But
is that a way to say it?
Totally.
Yeah,
but
okay,
I think
good.
what I'm trying to say is
Jonelle does a much better job explaining things than me.
Oh,
anyway,
I don't know if I do. I just
but
need
that
clarity.
That kind of shocked me, because I see myself as trying to advocate. I see myself as empathetic, but I also, when I heard about this language of white women's supremacy being rooted in sexism, it changed the way I thought, the way I'm bridging my kind of, the way I'm unpacking my biases. Maybe that's a better way of saying it.
And I do wonder if this is much more of an awakening in your generation than it is in my generation.
Maybe.
Because I think, like, I'm trying to play in my head how this conversation would go with friends of mine. And I think to a lot of them, that is a very obvious statement.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that they're necessarily even doing anything about it, but I think a lot of them are aware, yes, feminism and supporting my needs as a white woman is often leaving women of color behind.
Yeah.
And so I do think that is not as much of a surprise, I would assume, to my generation. But I can totally see, after we've had these conversations.
But I have to say,
before,
okay, now I'm thinking of women in their 40s. I'm watching a lot of kind of white government leaders, conservative government leaders, using sex appeal as a way to demonstrate their strong feminist attitudes. And so therefore, they think they're doing kind of the work for all of us women, when in fact, it feels like it's just work for them.
But I see, and I wouldn't necessarily claim women in their 40s or late 40s to be in my generation.
Yeah.
I think there's a pretty big divide between millennial and Gen X.
Yeah.
And it's surprising because they shouldn't be so close, but I do think Gen X tends to lean a little bit more old school than millennial does. And so even though the age might not be so far off, I think some of the philosophies around that are far off. But I totally agree. I think women know where their power lies, unfortunately.
Yes.
And I think, and especially politics are behind. So it's not surprising that it's seen in politics or some corporate spaces. I mean, you see it in tech spaces, I think. But this goes back to some of the conversation I was talking about earlier is how you were saying it's helped men rise up a little bit to the occasion, but I disagree. There is a male loneliness epidemic that is really rooted in white men, and it's because as white women, we have taught our daughters to be independent, to be emotionally strong, to, you were the first generation who could get credit cards without their dad's signature when you were an adult kind of thing. So you were teaching your women to be independent like your mothers were teaching you to. And yet we babied our men. And so there is this emotional disconnect. And that's the red pilling in a sense, that red pilling, not like pilling like your clothes.
Yeah.
But that like these small messages over time that have disconnected white men and white women and stuff from an emotional state. It's interesting. There's a new Netflix movie out that really does a great job of these nuances of how this stuff is embedded in young white males early on. It's called Adolescence.
Oh.
And have you heard of it?
Yeah.
And stuff. And it's really talking about how just some of these messages of patriarchy and sexism are really built into then some negative outcomes with this. But
I want to focus.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Go back.
Because my focus is, so this was a big awareness to me.
Yeah.
I totally get how I play the white male power game and how I align with white men so that I can have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
I totally get that. What I didn't get is that maneuvering that I'm spending time on, conscious, unconscious. Half the time I think it was unconscious, but it was there. That maneuvering actually kept me from being open to Black or brown or Latina women, and how they then also too had to maneuver the system, not only from the same kind of maneuvering, which is I thought only they had to do, but then they also have to do it from both the xenophobia and the racism and so forth. And so how do I, as a white woman, aware of this now, figure like, how do I hit that landscape? What do I do within that landscape? I was having a conversation with a friend, and they were saying this is one of the reasons why protocol is so important. When you're in a space, when we have protocol, and as a white woman, I might kind of we could break that protocol or we don't need to do that policy. But as a Black woman, knowing the rules of how you enter that engagement is important because then you could choose whether you want to enter in it or not. But when we soften the protocol, like white men will change policy and protocol all the time. And they have no concept that they're doing that. My going along with the softness of it, which I know I do, sure, well, maybe we don't need to have it. Let it go. It keeps me from knowing what my other sisters may need. So that's maybe one example.
Okay, before we kind of go, I have several things to unpack there. Before we kind of go into solutions, I want to talk about an analogy that's really interesting that's been out there. But I also want to touch on what you just said. I don't necessarily protocol is the right way either, because so often protocol
or maybe it's policy,
but so often policy and protocol is not built for marginalized people.
Yeah, but
So
okay, let me explain this. So I was talking to this Black friend of mine, and she was saying that she went into a hiring situation with there were specific guidelines. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Guidelines. She knew to go into it because of these guidelines. Midway through, those guidelines were changed. And I can see myself, so the white leader changed the guidelines. I could see myself, if I were on the hiring committee, in my, oh, sure, no big deal, because I wouldn't have understood that those guidelines were there, that they at least got to see them and either ascribe to them or choose to not be part of them.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so that's what I'm saying is like, I will often go along with certain things that male leadership may put into male dominant white leadership will put into play. And then I'm also willing to kind of go, yeah, dude, and not realize that those policies or some of those structures are really important for our
marginalized people. I would just say marginalized people.
Marginalized people.
Because the more
because then they can choose to get in it or get out of it. But there's an understanding, you know what I mean?
And
you can see even from your own space of neurodiversity.
I was just about to say, you're right. I don't necessarily have to agree with the policies, and I'm sure a lot of people of color don't agree with the policies, but you're right. At least I have an understanding of what it is. And so often in my career, you're right, was filled with white women who were adjusting and changing, and there were unspoken rules, and I was constantly confused and frustrated and feeling like I was doing something wrong. I wasn't getting into it. So And I remember, so this was another part of this sexism conversation, that often white men will have white women in leadership, the second down, because they're the ones that then have to do the battle. It's kind of the divide again. We see it with Black people having to divide within Black people. And so the white woman then has to be the one. So you can already see that hiring situation where the white man made a decision. The white woman kind of comes in fuzzy and says, oh, just let it go. Just let it go. So we don't realize these spaces that we continue to allow ourselves to play in that we're complicit to. I guess maybe that's even that language of sexism that kind of, it was shocking to me. I didn't realize I was playing that game. So there's an analogy that has been out there for a while. This has kind of been a trend, I feel like over a year ago, called man versus the bear. Have you heard of this analogy?
No.
So this analogy basically was a lot of people were presented with, would you rather be stuck in a forest with a bear or a male stranger, like a male you didn't know? And majority of women chose the bear.
Yeah.
And men on the internet were outraged.
Yeah.
They did not understand. They actually were telling women horrific things about them. You idiot, you blah, 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 for so many reasons. And women really outlined, like, first of all, the outcry of men kind of clearly shows why they chose the bear is because at least a bear is predictable.
Yeah.
Stranger man, they don't know what to expect. Now that same question was asked to Black women. Would you rather be with a bear or a white woman? And a lot of Black women said the bear.
Yeah.
Or would you rather be with a white man or a white woman? And a lot of Black women said a white man.
Yeah, this was part of my conversation too. And the reason being is because they don't have that interim person again.
No, and it's not about an interim person. It's about the distrust of the white woman.
Yeah.
That the white woman is not going to do what is in the interest of the community. They will do the interest of what's the interest of themselves.
Yeah, and because they're still kind of scratching to get to the top as well.
Yeah.
And their allyship isn't necessarily alongside the person of color or the person on the margin.
I mean, we talked about this last week or a couple weeks ago, cultural fit.
Yeah.
About how cultural fit comes out of fear because white women want. There's also been studies done that in hiring practices, when people look at quote unquote diverse hiring, they actually only go one step out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
So like a white male, one step out is a woman, is a white woman kind of thing. So and they won't often hit two places of diversity. So it wouldn't be a white woman who is with a disability kind of thing,
Yeah.
and so that's what really,
And I think why
it's
this
fear,
was shocking
comfortability.
to me, is I didn't realize that I always thought I was being empathetic because I too have felt outcast in
Yeah.
my job.
Yes.
I too have felt like I had to scratch to be heard or shout to be heard. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. And then, so I thought that was in alignment with persons who have been on the margins.
You could build camaraderie.
I could build camaraderie and have empathy. And yet it's only a small fraction. And in fact, if anything, I'm really through that kind of empathetic process, I haven't taken the time to actually unpack the full story.
No, and
so it was just fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen it rooted there. And that was like a really eye-opener to me.
Yeah. No, it's a fascinating.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. So what would your homework be on something like this?
That's a great question.
Or your reflection. I've had time to think about it. So I have been thinking about this idea of how does my whiteness, my white womenness negotiate spaces, especially with white men? And how are those what might have been unconscious? How can I make those conscious so that I can actually see its positive or negative ramifications of those?
I think what I was going to say more reflective is like, where are we getting defensive in the conversation around oppression and marginalized?
Yeah.
And so I think as you were talking about like, oh, I assumed I built camaraderie because I'm also marginalized. And I think so often, again, Karen and I are on this journey of writing this book about the discomfort cycle. And so this has been very front of mind lately is the part of that cycle is defensiveness. Is so we oftentimes as women find ourselves in spaces of oppression. Like we can't deny that, but we want to always compare, like it's a race for the oppression Olympics, basically. And we are
I
wanting
have more victim than you have.
Yes, we want to show camaraderie through victimness, but kind of like we talked about forever ago in our comparison trap episode, is comparisons never support. Instead, they just center you. And so it's going back to like, where have you been defensive in your life around, again, this oppression Olympics or this oppression, like the victimness?
You know what? I really appreciate you saying that, Jonelle, because when I read that, I could totally see how my behavior, I could see my behavior.
Yeah.
And instead of being defensive about my behavior, because I already know I've done all of this wrong, but instead of being defensive of my behavior, I was actually able to interrogate or listen or look at my behavior and be aware of it and be more curious than actually...
Which is the goal.
Which is the goal. And then also then I could relate in a bigger way to persons who've been hurt by my actions or by the action, by these kind of layers of action.
And our goal is to move ourselves into curiosity. From defensiveness to curiosity. That's the ultimate goal. And then support. Okay, well, that was a great topic.
Was it okay?
It was a little, I mean, I took it to tangents this time. Usually, but hopefully listeners appreciate it.
So one of the hardest things for Jonelle and I is like, I was reading about it. I was dying to talk to her about this because it was new to me. It was new to me.
And I am so proud of you that you didn't. Usually you do, and I have to like plug my ears and go, la, 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 la. Like, no, save it for the podcast. So you really kept this one. Good job. Well, thank you so much, listeners. We really appreciate you. Just if you valued this episode, if you learned something, please feel free, reach out. hello@whitewomenwakeup.com. Or we're anywhere you can find us at whitewomentowakeup.com. Please read our blog, sign up for our email,
Can I
watch
do a
us on
plug
YouTube.
for Instagram?
Sure.
On Instagram, we're putting a lot of resources. We've got a section called Queued Up. And so Queued Up is different podcasts. I'm learning so much from so many different podcasts. We've got a section called Lifting Voices. And Lifting Voices is just lifting all these amazing women that have done the fight. And then we've got another section, reading recommendations for books, because this was one that I got from a book I read. And so just go on to Instagram. White Women Wake Up.
It's also all on our website too, so please check it out there. And yeah, have a great week. Stay curious, be open, and keep waking up.
Bye.
We're good. Hi, welcome. Oh, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not recording right now.